So hello everyone, and sorry for the delay, but welcome to the regular council meeting of the Village of Lytton on May 26th. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone to please turn off your videos, mute your microphones to allow council to begin the proceedings. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and broadcasted on the Village of Lytton YouTube channel. If you wish to view this meeting or access a video recording of a past meeting, you can visit the Village YouTube channel and watch it there. Thank you, Your Worship. You may call the meeting to order.
Here tonight is Deputy Mayor Lightfoot, and so I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're conducting our meeting tonight on the traditional and unceded territories in the Clapham. Our first item is the introduction of late items. I don't believe staff has any to bring forward. No, that's correct. And now I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. So moved. Councillor McCann, Councillor Toss. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carried. Okay, moving on to the adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting of May the 12th. Could I have a motion put forward to adopt? I'll make the motion. Councillor Michelle. I'll second. And Councillor McCann. Any errors or omissions? If not, calling the question, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Moving on to the minutes of the public hearing of May 12th. Could I have someone put forward the motion to adopt? So moved. Councillor Toss.
Second.
There you go. Mayor O'Connor. Any errors or omissions? Yeah. Hearing none, calling the question, all in favor? Okay. So we're moving on now to delegations and presentations. We begin with the 2025 audited financial statements from Mario
Parati, yeah.
Parati.
Yep.
And is he online? Yeah. Oh, there you are, Mario. Good. If you'd like to make your presentation, we're ready and eager to hear what you have to say.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you for having me this evening. Before we get started, I'll just ask your CAO, CFO, if she has any comments that she would like, or if I should jump right into it.
I think you can jump right in, Mario.
Okay.
We're ready to go.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, so in your agenda package, you have the full financial statements for the Village of Lytton, and we're here to present in the public meeting the financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2025, and the audited statements. As has been done in the past, I'll present statements on behalf of management, and if there's any questions that Mayor and Council have, please feel free to ask them. You have the full statements in your agenda, but I have prepared a PowerPoint, with management to help everybody who is present and online to be able to follow along with the presentation. So with that, we'll get started. There we go. And we'll start with our independent auditor's report. And so I'm pleased to report that we are going to be issuing an opinion consistent with where we were last year. And while this is not a clean audit opinion, as I'll talk about in the next slide, other than the two items that bear on our opinion, these statements do present fairly the results of the Village of Lytton for the year ended December 31st, 2025. And as a reminder, because we're still in the recovery and rebuild mode for the village, we can't issue a clean audit opinion because we still don't know until the full construction is done on, as an example, the water upgrades that are happening and the sewer treatment plant. We won't know if there's other assets that need to be written off or impaired there. And the other piece is that 2 years ago, the asset retirement obligation standard came in, which required you to recognize any liabilities to decommission assets that you have. Obviously, until the rebuild is complete, that's not an exercise that is worth going through. So while this does impact our opinion, when it comes to the operating results and the spend on new capital, those are not impacted. So our opinion is clean. It's just these two items that bear on it, which will be dealt with when the time is right. So when we move to the financial results, we'll start on the statement of financial position. So this is the snapshot of all the assets and liabilities that you have at the end of the year. And we'll start with the financial assets, which came in at 21.1 million, up slightly from 20.9 million last year. And this is all the cash investments and cash that you have coming in. So a slight increase there. And then, the offset of that is what do you owe or what obligations do you have? And that's sitting fairly consistent with last year from 10.1 million to 10.5 million. Driven predominantly of that 10.58 million, 10.3 million of that is deferred revenue, which is the money that has been received from other levels of governments and other organizations that is required to be spent in accordance with certain criteria. And have a slide later on that talks about where all the buckets of that 10 million comes from. But if we take all the cash that you have or is coming in and we deduct our obligations, our liabilities, we end up in a net financial asset position of 10.5 million. And what that number represents is if we settled everything else, what would be left in the bank? And so that's really the money that you have that can be spent on future projects and to execute on your budget. And we'll talk about how that's split up between what's in reserves and in surpluses as we move through the presentation. I'll also highlight that your tangible capital assets, we do see a large increase this year from 7.1 million up to 9.9 million. And that is, the spending that's been happening on your capital projects, primarily driven by the water and sewer projects that are ongoing as we speak. When we move on and we start looking at our revenues on the statement of operations, your total revenues came in at 7.3 million, significantly over budget, which was 2.6 million. Now, you can see that on the right of the screen, we can have recovery funding of $5.7 million. That is not part of the budget because that's not part of your core operations. As the recovery happens, we're drawing down on those funds that were received from it. So if we take the recovery funding out, your total revenues were 1.7 million versus a budget of 2.6. The difference between what we have in actuals and budget, we can see is in government transfers. And we see that that's short because depending on the timing of which capital projects we were going to get new grant funding for, that impacts if those projects don't go forward, that means that the government grants aren't recognized. It doesn't mean that you don't have the money to spend. It means that we can't recognize the revenue. So we have a bit of a timing issue at play, and you will understand that more as we move through the next few slides. This next slide just breaks down, when we talk about 7.3 million, we can see that recovery funding, that 5.7 makes up 3/4 of what your total revenues for the year were. Now, when we look at our expenses, total expenses came in at 4.7 million versus a budget of 2.4 million. Now, again, we can see that recovery and planning segment is where we have that overage on budget. If we remove the budget of 177,000 and the 221 or 2.2 million in actual spending, your budget was 2.28 million and you came in at 2.47 million. We are slightly over budget, and that is in general administration, but that's all recovery operating expenses that would have been there. So we don't have any true overages on budgets. It's just when it comes to the budgeting of the recovery, it's all dependent on timing. And because it's funded, and we know that any recovery expenses are approved and come from existing funding, we're not offside with legislation because we know we have a revenue source for them. So again, we're seeing that difference get closer and closer every year as you're moving more into a more mature environment in terms of the rebuild. But just want to highlight there because I don't want there to be anything in the public that's saying, well, we're over budget on all of this. Why are we over budget? It's part of how the recovery process works, is where we're at. And when we talk about 4.7 million, again, almost half of that is in recovery and planning. So we can see how much effort is being spent within the recovery and planning for the future of the village. Now, we bring this all together. How did you do against your budget? And so while this slide, you won't find this table in the financial statements. All these numbers do come from the statements. And the reason why we've pulled this slide together is because the way you have to budget under the community charter doesn't align with how we're required to show the financial statements under public sector accounting standards. And so this slide brings it together so you can compare apples to apples on how you did. So your plan was to have an accounting surplus of $142,000. You would spend 170,000, 175,000 on capital projects. We add back your amortization of your capital assets because that's not a cash expense and it's not budgeted for. And we come to a surplus before transfers of $161,000. And the plan was to transfer that money into your reserves. Now, what actually happened is that we ended up with an annual surplus of $2.6 million. And from that, we spent 3.2 million on capital projects. And predominantly, again, that's in your water and sewer projects. Very important to get those done. And so again, those were funded by new grants that came in, and we were using those funds. So all of that you had the funding for, and we knew that it was going to go there. We add back the amortization, add back the write-off of some of your capital assets that were found that were no longer serviceable, and we ended up with a deficit of $193,000. That deficit was funded from by transferring out of reserves, and we transferred $249,000 out of reserves, and we end up with a slight surplus after that. So again, we can see that there wasn't, you're very close to budget, other than it's the timing of the capital spend when we're doing all of this recovery work. And so, when we look at your financial position, it was, and if we go back a couple slides, the plan was to be breaking even. And we can see that that net financial asset position decreased by $200,000. And yet you spent over $3 million in your infrastructure. So we're seeing that your financial position is coming in line with what we'd expected, and we got a lot done capital-wise this year. Now, when we come back and we're going to start talking about the notes, and really, I want to highlight a couple of items because it is this first slide here, which we've brought in this year. We haven't had it in the presentation in prior years, and this is your deferred revenue. And so what this slide shows is, what you had at the start of the year in terms of cash received from various organizations, whether it's Ministry of Municipal Affairs, Emergency Management, the federal government, what you received and what you spent this year of funding to get to what we have at the end. And so we can see that at the start of the year, we had $9.9 million in funding received that was earmarked for certain projects. We received another $1.5 million. The biggest chunk of that is, capital funding from the federal government for the sewer treatment plant at $1.4 million. And we can see that we spent $1 million of that money through capital spend and other operating projects. And we end up with $10.3 million this year. So we actually have more money now to spend than we did at the end of last year, to the tune of $400,000. But we know that this is all specifically earmarked, especially when we're looking at the water and sewer projects that are ongoing and continue to go. A lot of this has already been spent on those. So we can see that that's where we have the one bucket of money to spend. We still have $10.3 million. Now, the other place where we have money to spend is in your surpluses and reserves. Now, if we go back to that first slide on your financial position, I said that you had just over $10 million as money that was sitting in your surplus and reserves there. But our total accumulated surplus is sitting at $20.5 million. And the reason why there's a disconnect between those two numbers is this equity and tangible capital assets, which is the second line from the bottom of this slide. What that number represents is what you've spent historically on all of your infrastructure, less depreciation, if you had any debt, less any debt on it. And that is what we track as the equity that you have in your infrastructure, in your buildings, in your community. That's not money that is available to be spent, because as a municipality, you can't borrow against it. You can't take out a mortgage on the hall that you're sitting in right now, or on your new water system. So we take that out. When we take that 9.9 million out, we come back to that $10.5 million that I talked about earlier. And that's broken into two buckets. We have $3.1 million in our unrestricted surplus, and that is the money that management has to execute on the budget that council has approved. The other piece that we have is $7.4 million, down by $250,000 from last year, as we talked about, in your reserve funds. That's money that management needs council to release through the budgeting process in order for it to be spent. And this next slide shows what is sitting in the reserves. And we have $7.4 million sitting here. The two biggest pieces that we have is the Community Works Fund, formerly known as the gas tax, spending only on certain types of capital projects that you have there. And then the insurance proceeds reserve, that's the money that was received over the past several years relating to the wildfire. And so that's money that's been set aside for future projects. And so we can see that when it comes to money that you have to spend, we have that $10 million that's sitting in your deferred revenue, which is very specific that you can only spend it on certain items. And then we have our reserves and our unrestricted, which is guided by council in terms of money that's available to be spent. So we have about $20 million there, broken 50-50 between what others outside of the village say that you can spend it on versus what you have at your discretion as mayor and council to spend on. So I'm going to pause there and ask if there's any questions before we move on to the audit results at a high level.
Any questions from council?
I don't know. This isn't my wheelhouse. Thank you, acting mayor. But the operations page there where you have the 3 million surplus, is that not supposed to be for, like, that's obviously came from some sort of grant money. So why would it be in operations?
So
There we
the 3.4 million, that number represents what your surplus, and it can be from, it's going to be on the return on invest. It's not just coming from grants. It'll be that what you had in terms of investment income that didn't have to get allocated specifically to grants. It could be a surplus on taxation where funds have built up over time. If there is, and in your case, likely not, it's going to be incidental there. Any sales and services. So it's accumulation of everything that's there, but also understanding that it's a timing thing. There might have been some items that were budgeted to be spent this year that are going to be spent next year. So, and
I
you
guess my
always,
question is, where did that money come from then? The 3.4, if it's not from taxation.
so, and again, like if we look at that number where it was last year, it was already at 3.1. I don't have the prior year statements to see what basis that came up with, but that would have just been, this is, what is left over where it would have been taxation, like I said, investment income, any sales of services. And some of this would have predated the wildfire as well, because there would have been, if memory serves, 1 to 2 million that was there from before that hasn't been specifically set aside by council.
Okay. Any other?
Thank you.
Mayor O'Connor, any questions? No? Councillor Toss?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the water and sewer costs for I guess about 300,000. And our water and sewer fees are supposed to cover that, not our operating budget. So I'm confused. I thought the Local Government Act required that we separate that our water and sewer is.
That's not operating. That's unrestricted surplus.
Okay, so the brackets around it, are they representing the amount that we spend on, sorry, excuse my ignorance. Can you explain that?
Yeah,
Steve,
no,
Roddy?
absolutely. No, absolutely. So right now, the amount spent in there, this year, water was at $396,000. Spend sewer was at $191,000, both up from where they were last year. So you'll see that they've got, the brackets means that you are in a deficit in those two funds at present time. And so when it comes to being in a deficit, obviously that means that your revenues did not cover the expenditures that was there. And again, until the rebuild is done and the new systems are up and running, and then we have more people connected to it, I'm not surprised that we're sitting in a deficit in those areas right now. And when you're in a deficit, that means that you're using operating funds to cover the shortfall that you have there until such time that the revenues catch back up. And again, because of where you're at and how you're starting over and you're rebuilding, I'm not surprised that this has happened. It's not unusual in that sense.
I just wanted to add to that, and council probably remembers we've talked about on many occasions the annual operating grant that we're getting from municipal affairs to help cover these extraneous costs that we have. And this is a perfect example of one of the areas that grant funding is intended to cover to bridge Lytton until we get back to kind of a regular operation. So that comes out, we've referred to it as the 700,000 in the past. It's now $1,025,000 every year, and it covers those specifically for that kind of deficit.
Thank you.
If I may add confusion to so because they're in a deficit right now and they are supposed to be self-sustaining, once the system is operational, does that deficit need to get repaid back in-house to the operating budget? Or is it something that we can just say that was part of the recovery?
I mean, we can do it either way. We have, you may remember, I believe it was early in 2026, we have a council resolution to transfer money from the operating surplus to the sewer, because there was a deficit last year, which you can see on the screen there of 137. So I believe we've already got a resolution to transfer for that one. I would expect that from staff's perspective, we're currently working on an analysis of the sewer and water rates, and we'll be bringing forward a recommendation regarding those. And it will also include a cleaning up of these surpluses, because we're going to try to get back to, back to zero in those utilities.
Great.
So I think we'll be recommending that.
Okay. If there's no more questions, would you like to continue?
Yep, I can continue, and I'll also just reiterate that, as in years past, that whole, once you get to the point, that whole reset of the reserves is going to be coming, and it's a matter of, similar to why we can't have a clean audit opinion right now. There's more important things to be dealing with in terms of making sure that everything's operating the way it needs to, and then this will come in once we know where we landed after all the funding is done. That's the time to deal with that piece.
Thank you.
So in terms of the audit results, and again, we'll do a very high level on it. I have a few bullet points on here, and so the audit was completed in line with expectations, and kind of a nebulous statement, but what that statement means is that through the winter we come in and we work with management to understand what's changed within the village, and when we understand what's changed, that informs us in terms of how we need to adapt our audit approach. And then as a part of that, we change our audit procedures and we look at what we expect our tests to yield in terms of results. And if our results, when we come in the spring, yield what we expected, we're good. If we have to start to troubleshoot, that could be a sign that things are not operating the way we wanted. And I'm happy to say that we didn't have to troubleshoot that way, and we didn't have to deviate from our planned audit approach. One item that I will mention is that you will have noted that there is a restatement in the financial statements. And so as we went through the capital projects this year, what we identified is that in last year's statements, there was capital expenditures, certain capital expenditures relating to the water and sewer projects that were expensed in your operating surplus. When you go through the whole moving from the recovery, which is an operating expense, to capital, the way it was coded, that was identified there. So that's been corrected in these financial statements, and we can see that full amount there. It's not a sign that there was misspending. It was just that these amounts got close to operating when they should have been close to capital, and that's what that represents. So it wasn't anything to be, we didn't have to worry about any of the expenses weren't properly dealt with or anything like that. We did spend a lot of time, as we have in past years, looking at the recovery funding and making sure that the reconciliation of the funding went in accordance with what we expected, and we didn't have it there. Actually, really have worked well with management over the past couple of years on getting a good framework in terms of how to deal with it, and really a lot easier for management to be able to pull those reports now. So I just want to compliment them on the work that they've done, because it was a lot of work to get it to this point. No significant internal control matters, so we didn't identify any areas of weakness where we think that you need to improve. how the village operates or any risks that we feel that you could be exposed because you aren't operating the way that you should be. And then for transparency, because we know that there is a high scrutiny on public funding and how it's being spent, we do targeted procedures towards management and council who can influence management in terms of looking at transactions with the village, and we didn't have any items identified that we had concerns with. So overall, very happy to stand behind the audit opinion that we've brought forward this evening, and a big thank you to management for getting us all the information that we needed so that we could form our opinion and give you this report this evening. And with that, I will stop the share and just ask if there's any questions that you have in terms of the audit itself for the public to hear.
Councillor Toss.
Thank you. And then I think Mayor O'Connor's after me. Yeah, I was wondering about like the 4.3 in insurance reserves. We've already earmarked that for the building of the village office. When does that start becoming part of your, your health of the village sustainability sort of opinion? I'm concerned about our new builds, and I don't see any sort of reference to what we've committed to in that.
So I'm just confused about the sustainability opinion on there. The role of the audit is to highlight what has been spent and what has been done. So that money, when it starts to be spent and that funding is accessed to fund the build of the office, then we'll be reporting on as the money is spent that the expenditures were in line with what the intention was.
Thank you.
Okay. And Mayor O'Connor, did you have a question?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. We really appreciate the work you've done, Mario, and the findings. It sounds like our staff have done incredible work, or very good work, to bring us through this last year of spending. We have quite the money that we need to spend, and it sounds like everything was managed very, very well. So thank you for that, Mario, and I'd like to thank staff for that.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Councillor McCann?
I concur with you, Mayor O'Connor. It's very reassuring, Mario, to hear that final page of points that you made, because that was my impression all along, and it's nice to have that validated by some outside sources. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you, Diane.
Anyone else? Councillor Toss?
Yeah, well, I think I just want to make the point that while our financials are good for the 2026 and the auditor has performed his duties, that doesn't mean that we're in a good position in 3 years with our new builds. So yeah, I have concerns about the operations costs going forward, and just
Point of order.
Councillor Toss, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We have a motion before us. The council approved the audited financial statements. Would someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Councillor Toss.
I'll second.
Councillor McCann. Any more discussion? Calling the question, all in favor?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, and we'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Yes, you will. Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda, 6.2. Strategic recommendations for expanding the village of Lytton's demographics. We have a couple of students from the University of the Fraser Valley that have a presentation to make. Jackson Phillips, and I would hope he will introduce his co-worker as I stumble over pronunciation quite a bit.
Hello, hi, I'm Jackson. Thank you for having me. I'm also here with Allison and Liam, and Augustino are here with me tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Let me share my presentation. Okay. Can everybody see my screen before I start? Yeah?
Yes.
Thank you. So hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Jackson Phillips. I'm a student at the University of the Fraser Valley, and I'm here to present to you our project on strategic directions for expanding the Village of Lytton's youth demographic. In my presentation, I'll be sharing our challenge, our research, and our key directions. Just before I begin, I'd just like to say a special thank you to Carolyn and Maggie for their direction, as well as to Patrick for sharing his knowledge in the village of Lytton and giving us just a wonderful tour. So we were challenged by Carolyn. Oh, and here's just a brief overview of what I'll be sharing tonight. So we were challenged by Carolyn to research what strategies the village of Lytton could use to grow the youth population. With this challenge, we started our research phase. In our research phase, we conducted a literature review, engaged with other UFV students, and conducted a site visit of the village of Lytton with Patrick. In our research phase, we looked into areas like disaster response, amenity migration, small town recovery, climate response, and tourism tactics. Our research phase also helped us determine which demographics from which regions we could target, that being youth and young couples with children from the Nicola Valley or Fraser Valley regions. For our youth demographic, affordability is key. Youth need affordable communities where they could potentially own property or start small businesses. Youth also need connectivity and a strong sense of community. For young couples with children, services, affordability, and stable incomes are critical. Introducing youth services will support this demographic, while building higher density housing can support a growing population. Youth couples with children also value safety and climate resilience. Showing that Lytton is a climate resilient community is essential for building this demographic. This led us to develop our strategic directions. So we have developed 18 strategic directions in 5 key areas. The key areas are placemaking, economic development, climate action, mobility, and services and housing. Over the next couple slides, I will just be sharing just a select few of the 18 strategic directions. So our first section is placemaking. For placemaking, we support the creation of creative spaces. Areas like pocket parks or community gardens are a great way to entice young creative people. These spaces can also be used to market the community in collaboration with organizations like BC Tourism or local, more regional tourism organizations. Our second section is economic development. Having spaces where corporations can operate not just locally and regionally, but potentially globally is essential for remote workers and businesses. Developing shared or co-working spaces can support potential amenity migrants and help build a strong sense of community. Our third area is climate resilience. If we build shared business spaces, marketing them with a climate resilient messaging on a digital platform will help target youth and amenity migrants. Showcasing Lytton's safety and work to become a climate resilient community is essential to bringing in new residents. Our fourth section is mobility. This area is very important to youth and young families, as accessing neighboring communities is an essential factor for health and well-being. Supporting a pilot shuttle to places like Kamloops or Hope can increase connectivity to these neighboring communities, as well as adding mobility infrastructure within the village can support business development and walkability. Our fifth and final section is services and housing. For young families, services are essential. Youth services developed in collaboration with neighboring First Nations can support the development of these services and grow and help support a growing population. But with supporting a growing population, we must build housing. Higher density housing that facilitates rental options for youth can be an effective tactic to bring in new youth residents and support a growing youth population. So to sort of conclude here, just my final thoughts, I just wanted to share some suggested next steps. Partnerships are an essential aspect of building a community. Partnerships with corporations to set up bases of operation can help expand the economic growth of the village of Lytton, while also bringing in new residents. Similarly, friendly competitions can be used to market the community to a youth population, and especially young creative families. Programming a competition to activate a space in the community can increase engagement locally, regionally, and also potentially province-wide. This could potentially be like a design or art studio that can showcase the history and identity of the village of Lytton. And with that, I must conclude and thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Council, are there any questions or comments you'd like to make?
I love the,
Councillor Toss?
yeah, thank you, Mayor Lightfoot. I really like the idea of the friendly competitions. I think that's like, you know, I think about the car rally, the mayor could have picked the best car, or, you know, art murals are a fantastic idea. And as well, like, I think about the planters around town, maybe the best planter could get, you know, some sort of recognition. Just those kind of ideas. Yeah, they excite me. So thank you.
Carolyn, is there anything you'd like to add? Ms. Lamont?
Sorry, you startled me there.
Sorry.
I was taking notes. No, certainly they raise, and I think what's a really, thank you, Jackson, and your team. They really did a lot of research on this, and I think once you review the final report, which they'll be submitting tomorrow, we just wanted to get your feedback to see, you know, your sort of high level thoughts and incorporate anything before the final report is submitted by them. But no, they've been a pleasure to work with, and it was tremendous to have Patrick come as well. Obviously, Maggie and my time in the community is not as long as Patrick's. So yeah, it was a really great experience, and as you know, this was something that was part of the original work program, and the university through Sherry Ends, their professor really helped this happen. So yeah, just thanks to the team, and I look forward to the final report and how it will also direct not only some of the young adult engagement that we hope to do in the next month and a half with the local sort of 18 to 30 to 35-year-olds, as well as the OCP itself. So thank you for giving me that opportunity to talk to it.
Councillor McCann?
Thank you. I, because I haven't had a chance to see this except in the last minute or so, I'll have all kinds of questions later. But one question that did pop up quickly was, one of the things I've been wondering about is the role of, you call it, I think, climate resiliency. And I'm wondering about things like solar farms and just kind of looking at a different twist on the kind of industry that is possible here and that would entice younger people to come and work here. So when you said that little, I'm not even sure what you called it, if you called it climate resiliency, you called it something like that. What exactly did you mean by that? Can you find it? Somewhere in there. Climate, yeah.
I think exactly that. You know, we want to really showcase that Lytton both is and can be a very climate resilient community. Climate resilience is sort of showing like maybe not a resistance, but you know, a strength against our many growing climate challenges that we experience here in BC. And one way we can bring in a youth population is just show sort of marketing that this is a strong community, and you know, it has a lot of potential to bring in new businesses, like you say, a solar farm. I think that's a fantastic idea, and definitely aligns with your climate resilient principles. I don't know, does anybody else in my group have anything else to say, or maybe Carolyn can add to that?
They'll hear from me later on the economic development strategy, but yeah, I'd open it up to your team. That would be great.
Well, it sounds like they're a shy group.
There's a few people, I think. Allison, did you have something? Or Mira?
Jump in. I can add in. So one of the things that we're still kind of working on, that Augustino and I kind of discussed, were some ideas on how we can make climate resiliency or any of one of our recommendations implementable. So
Yeah,
realistic, like we're like just as how we approach SMART goals, we need to approach our recommendations in a way where it is actually realistic to implement. So it's something that we're still currently working on, and then Carolyn will hear more on it from us. But we're also open to some ideas if there's any suggestions or any sort of area that you would like us to look into. We would love to kind of get that feedback so we could work on further recommendations or further research and analysis that we could do for the team and for the village.
I'll just add.
Councillor
I'll
McCann.
add to my comment then. So once I've had a chance to really take a close look at your presentation tonight, like I said, I probably will have questions. And so Carolyn can expect to hear from me a bit more on all this because it just makes me think and then I have to really flesh it out a bit. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
If I could just add comment, I'm somewhat of a green technology junkie on Facebook. And so I see things like solar fences in European countries or little wind onions. And so I'm quite excited that this will gain some momentum and we can be really innovative in how we present ourselves and maybe be a lighthouse for innovation. So thank you for spending time in that area. Any other questions or comments? I'm glad, Carolyn, that you clarified that we will receive the report soon because that was my question is, could I have a hard copy? So that's good that we'll see it in the next few weeks or sooner, it sounds like.
Sooner.
Okay, so I have a motion before us to receive the presentation from the Fraser Valley School.
So move Toss.
Councillor Toss. Seconded Councillor Michelle. All in favor? Okay. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so now we move on to item 7, which is public comment, and I'll let our corporate officer, Thorenshenko, call for comments.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we now invite members of the public to provide comments on items related to the agenda tonight. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand function featured on Zoom. You can find that by clicking on React at the bottom of your screen and then select raise hand. When it's your turn, I'll read your name and ask you to unmute yourself. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Speakers are asked to please state and spell your name, provide your address, and indicate the agenda item number you are speaking to. So if anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. I will call for a second time. If anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. And again, you can find that under React at the bottom of your screen. And Your Worship, I'm seeing nobody online. Is there anyone there at Parish Hall that wishes to speak?
No, there's no one here tonight.
All right, so that concludes the public comment portion of the meeting, and back to you, Your Worship.
Okay, moving on, we're at staff reports and presentations, and first up is our Chief Administrative Officer with our capital projects update report.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And this is our monthly report on the capital projects. And so I have dropped the Public Works building off of this list because it's complete. So we don't need to keep talking about it. And but we still have 5 remaining. So on the community hub, we have been working on the Class C and Class B estimate actually. The estimates have come in over our budget. And so we're currently working with the architects to compile a list of possible changes that could be made to the schematic design that council has already seen that will help save some money and bring it back under, within the budget. So we intend to have something to council probably within the next couple of weeks. We'll probably do it in the form of a workshop where people can just, get into some of the detail and ask some questions about some of the potential changes to the project itself. once all that's finalized, then we will, that's kind of the final step in the design piece. And then from there, we will, continue with some PAC meeting and some community consultation on some of the actual like look and feel parts of the design that will come later. And then the architects will sort of proceed with that phase of the document generation. On the fire hall, we had our RFP for an architect out in the marketplace. It closed on May the 15th with 12 submissions. So we're in the process of going through those and plan to bring a recommendation to council probably at the next meeting, if not the one after that. We've also hired a traffic engineer who's looking at the possibility of access egress from Highway 1 as opposed to the Loring Way access. We had initially spoken to the Ministry of Transportation, and the first step was for us to hire a traffic engineer to analyze whether or not it's even a possible, whether it's even possible. So we're in the process of doing that. With the village office, everybody knows, I think the construction started on Monday. They have been on site removing some of the fill and beginning the excavation for the utility trenches, and that's that type of work. That's kind of where they start with that. We did have one initial meeting with the chamber to discuss the visitor services on the main floor, and we'll be continuing to follow up on that. That's more related to probably like a later phase in the construction where we start to do the fit up of the space. All the building permit requirements are complete. I don't know if we actually have the building permit in our hand, but we've been through all the requirements and got everything signed off. So that's good news. And there will be a setback variance coming to council because you may remember we've approved a design that kind of goes basically right to the lot line. So that will be that's a piece that will be coming, I think, at the next meeting. With the water upgrades, continuing on the pre-design of the water main that's going to come down along from down the hill along to Main Street. And so that takes quite a while to do that design. So that one that's been on the list now for a little while because they've been working on it. We did hire the contractor to do the meter installation on IR 17 and 18. That was approved at the last council meeting. And the same contractor is actually going to do the water sampling stations that were also approved. So we're moving forward on those. And then some of the next steps, these are also longer term things. We're working on design proposals for some of the other big items, the reactivation of well number 1, the Loring Way water main replacement, which is going to be a big project, and then also the repairs up at the water intake. So none of those projects will proceed in 2026. Those will be 2027 projects, but we'll be working on the design this year. And then on the sewer upgrades, as we know, the big project's underway. They've been moving up Center Lane, and they seem to make pretty good progress. They work pretty quickly. We also have the final report on the wastewater treatment plant. So now that we have that report, we'll be looking for design proposals from the engineering firms on how to proceed with those required upgrades and what that looks like. And then the final thing on the sewer is the skate upgrades with the backup power. Those are proceeding. So.
Okay, before I ask for questions, can I have someone put the motion on the floor that we received the update?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Councillor Michelle, any questions?
Yep.
Councillor McCann?
When we are talking about the later projects for well 1, Loring Way, etc., where does the funding for that come from? Like, is that going to still be held and it's still assigned?
Yeah, that's all part of the UBCM $5 million grant. Those projects are on the approved list. Yeah, that both council and UBCM have approved. So the funding is set aside for those.
And there's no time limit on that, just until it's done.
I think it's like 28 or 29 that grant is finished, finalized. Yeah.
I have another question, but I can wait. Somebody else wants to have a turn.
Councillor Toss.
Thank you. I've got a few questions on maybe Councillor McCann, and I can go back and forth. I was wondering, for the pool and the hub being over budget, what kind of numbers are we looking at? I think our hub was $25 million budget. What did it come in at?
Well, it's the hub, including the pool. The whole project was 25 million.
Okay.
And so right now we have an estimate on the building itself of 20
Okay.
and on the pool of 7.
Okay.
So we're looking to decrease both of those. And our goal is to have, is to start out well below our 26 million because things happen.
Yeah.
As you go through.
Councillor McCann, did you have another question?
I think that answered my question. Thank you.
I keep looking up the screen because I'm not
I don't have any questions. It's just so incredible to see all the work that is happening and going on, particularly in the village right now. I know we waited a long time for the building permit to come from TNRD, and they have their process to get that going. I had lots of questions asking why is it taking so long, and of course none of us really know, but it's been issued, and we're thankful for that. So it's great to see the village office going ahead.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Toss.
Thank you. I'm wondering, in terms of the fire hall, will we be engaging our fire department as part of that process, and have we yet?
We've engaged, they were involved in the initial requirements gathering that resulted in the first concept plan, which then resulted in the RFP. They probably won't be involved in the selection of the architect because that's already there. But then once that architect is selected, we're starting from ground zero in terms of requirements gathering all over again. So our fire department, other local emergency management partners, it'll involve the local First Nations, like everybody will be involved again. Once we get to that.
That's great news.
Yeah.
Is there any word back from BC Ambulance?
Nothing confirmed, but
Okay.
there's positive response.
Okay.
So
My last and final question, if no one else has a question, when can we expect an operations plan for these buildings?
I think once we determine what the building is, that's the first step. So once we know like what the hub is, then we can engage somebody to prepare that operations plan to go with it. So at this time, I mean, if it's 4 rooms or 6 rooms or 15,000 square feet or 12,000 square feet, all those things matter.
Sure.
And so there's no point in getting someone down a road and then changing all the parameters and they got to update everything. And meanwhile, we're just paying them over and over again to keep doing that. So I think, we're very close on the community hub once we have the opportunity to have this workshop and make some of these kind of final decisions on the scope of the building.
Sure. Is that typical to prepare an operational budget after the building's designed?
I mean, you can prepare a high level budget that includes, sort of like standard costing. Like you could pull numbers out of the air for things like the maintenance, the repairs and maintenance, cleaning, janitorial, because it all depends on the square footage. Those are all costs that are budgeted on a per square foot basis. And there's lots of information available on per square foot amounts for those types of costs because any commercial building has them and develops those. So is it typical? Well, I'm not really sure if I'd say it's typical. I don't think it's completely unusual to wait until you know what you're building to then do your budget from there.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Sorry, I needed to say. I'm sorry. I just have to make one comment in defense of our colleagues at the TNRD. The building permit for the office was not long at all. That was done very, very quickly when it comes to building permits.
Oh, yeah.
To have it turned around in less than 2 months is very fast. So I just have to say that,
It's not on them.
it just does take time. There is time involved in doing the work they need to do, but they did it very quickly for us. Thank you.
Well, and if I may, the comment I want to make is I really look forward to seeing the final design of the hub. And most of us that have built or whatever are kind of practiced in saving money because it seems almost every construction that I've been involved in, that's part of the task is to watch your expenses and save when you can. But having said that, as an energy efficient building, it may be a testament to our green focus that the younger people are looking for.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. Thank you. So we have the motion on the floor. If I would like to call the question, all in favor of receiving this? No one opposed, motion's carried. Okay, next, monthly report, no, which one are we on?
That's right.
8.2, one, monthly reporting.
And this
Back to
is just
you.
our standard report. I don't really have any comments to add to this. This is our monthly EMCR
Okay.
reimbursement report.
It's always reassuring for me to see that there's a big balance there, that we still have time to work for a while.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any questions from council? Councillor Toss?
Just a comment that, again, and I know everyone's heard this from me a million times, that I have concerns about the amount of recovery staffing funding that's going out. I also have a question around the 2,500 for John Hogan.
Yeah, that's related to some backfilling that he
Okay,
arranged on his own to have
Gotcha.
delivered, and we had agreed that we would reimburse him for that. It's
perfect. Thank you.
just part of the regular program.
Great.
Okay, so, motion to receive. Councillor McCann
I'll move the motion.
and Councillor Toss second. Any more discussion? If not.
I'll comment. Sorry.
Okay. No,
Yeah,
sorry for not noticing you.
Yeah, that's okay. I just have a quick comment, and contrary to Councillor Toss's comment, I have no issues with the amount that we're spending on staff, because they are doing incredible work and needed work. And that's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing no one, I'll call the question. All in favor? Seeing no one opposed, motion is carried. Moving right on to the Director of Development. So I believe this is Ms. Lamont. Would be presenting this.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
sorry, I'm just really challenged tonight with my video. I don't know why, but thank you. So what I'm presenting tonight is the first report of three is the Northern Development Initiative Trust funding applications. And if you will recall, the CAO Mumbercat touched on this at the last meeting. So at the end of April, I prepared and submitted two applications to the Northern Development Initiative Trust, NDIT. And the first was for the Pocket Park washroom. This will be our third attempt to try and get funding for this washroom. Right now, it is a temporary closed in the winter, which is not great. And it's not accessible. So the funding is to allow it to get a permanent washroom that's similar in design as the shade structure. And we're looking for matching funds coming from the Growing Communities Reserve of 33,250. The second one is downtown enhancement, and that is a design development plan for Fraser, 4th, and Main Street. We've been working on with engineering or public works, planning, and other municipal staff through the CAO, is how do we coordinate sidewalks, parking, lighting, street trees, drainage, parking, and actually the road. So we did apply for the capital program from NDIT earlier this year in January, and they basically came back and said you need a plan. So this is actually to do the plan with the hope that the next round, or once that plan is done, we then can go for the capital funding, which is significantly more. So in this case, we're asking for a match of 25,000, and it's coming from Municipal Affairs Wildfire is it a recovery fund? Yes. So that's before you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Let's get the motion on the table first.
I'll make the motion.
Councillor Michelle. And
I'll
second
second.
by Councillor McCann. Okay, any questions? Okay, Councillor Toss.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make the comment. I appreciate this work being done. I'm unable to support it because of the water fountain. I've been so adamant on having water available on the street. And this looks like somebody's made a decision that vandalism and service concerns dictate that it has to be inside in one of our buildings, which kind of defeats the purpose of having water available in 50-degree heat on a Sunday. And then the other thing that concerns me is the parks plan. Well, I see its value for accessing grant money, and I get that. I just wonder why our director of operations, who's quite well versed in landscaping and has a lot of experience, couldn't develop that in-house.
I can answer the first one. We didn't actually say that it would go inside. We said that it should be part of more of a secure building, such as the village office. And this was in consultation with our public works staff. I don't quite, typically people that do streetscape plans have a long experience with understanding the interface amongst services, amongst design considerations, about pedestrian flow, about landscaping. I don't think I've ever seen someone not be someone like this. And I would question if the NDIT would accept it.
And if I may clarify, what you're asking for is approval for a submission to have this position established. Who fills that position is not part of the motion, right?
Who prepares
Correct.
that?
Who prepares? Yeah.
But to clarify, we did get a quote, but yes, it could be anybody. You need to submit a quote as part of your grant application.
Okay. Councillor McCann?
Okay, now I'm really confused, but I'll see if I can work my way through this. So what we're talking about here, you've got the NDIT Pocket Park accessible washroom and Main Street revitalization plan. So that's one thing. Is NDIT will pay for the plan?
So just to clarify, there's 2 grants and 2 programs. The
Yeah.
washroom, and just so you know, that's what we did last time. And they said, no, you can't make Pocket Park part of your downtown enhancement. It needs to be, downtown enhancement needs to be Main Street focused. So, so what we did is we went back to community spaces, that grant program under the NDIT, where we got our funding for the landscaping and the mister, and are applying for Pocket Park under that program. The downtown enhancement, which they call the Main Street revitalization, there's 2 programs. Main Street revitalization, which is basically the planning, and then there's another program called Capital. So we previously applied under Capital because we felt that, wow, we're just replacing. But actually, once we got into it with all our staff, and we realized that there's so many layers to this, and I could probably spend an hour talking about all the layers that this plan needs to have. And actually, Daryl would probably be even better. But as you know, there's services, there's drainage, there's landscaping. You know, we got the street tree grant, and you know, as Tanya would say, well, how are we irrigating them? You know, so
Yeah.
there's so many layers, and if you just do it incrementally, you know, 1, will be inefficient, and 2, you're guaranteed to make it mistakes that cost you even more. So I know I'm a planner and I believe in planning, but it is a good way to go.
Right. So that's what we're talking about, is kind of looking at different layers of expanding this whole thing and developing. And there's this way of doing it. Then you need this first, then this, and this. But the plan needs to be done first. And we kind of always jump right to the project before we get the plan done. So we're backing up and doing it properly is basically what I'm hearing. Yeah. Okay.
If I may clarify, tell me where I'm wrong, please. So one motion is to put money in place to do the washroom facility. The other one is to develop a plan, the downtown enhancement plan.
It is to do the other one is the matching funds as well. They're both the same. One is to do a plan and one is to do the washroom.
And once we have the plan done, maybe next year or whatever, then we would be eligible to access capital for the things within the plan.
Correct.
Perfect, okay, yeah.
Can I make a?
Sorry, CAO.
I just wanted to address Councillor Toss's question about the about the water. in the
Okay.
washroom, because we have talked about this a lot and
Yeah.
it was not forgotten or not addressed. And so I think and again, speaking with our operations manager, who does have 20 years of experience in parks, it was actually her recommendation that we not go with a outside standalone feature at Pocket Park, because she did feel there was significant risk of it being vandalized. So her recommendation was to, in the accessible washroom, provide a tap water that, and to make it so that it appears like something you'd want to drink. And then have like a water fill station in the village office, which will be open through the visitor center, for quite a few hours a week. So it was kind of like a compromise to try to make sure that we didn't end up spending a lot of ongoing money on operations.
And fixing that.
That's the recommendation.
May I paraphrase what you said then? So then the bathrooms that are going into, all things remaining equal, going into Pocket Park, the permanent washrooms in the accessible stall, there will be an opportunity, some sort of an attractive watering dispenser
There's
that's
just
not where you're watching your,
one room that's an accessible water.
other than the sink.
Yeah,
Okay,
it will include, we're going to try to incorporate something that makes you want to fill your water bottle.
that's great.
Right, as opposed to, like a grubby old public washroom.
Yeah.
So.
And if I might say, Public Works also was concerned that it would require a separate water line because the washroom would be open in the winter, but the water fill station would not. So that was the other reason.
Why is that?
Well, if you're plumbing and you have an encased indoor plumbing, then that's going to look after itself in the wintertime. So it's all 4 seasons. If you have a water station outside of that on its own, then you're going to have to look after that separately as well. It's going to have to be turned off in the winter and managed. And so it's a whole different water line. So it costs more.
Makes sense.
As well.
Thank you.
Well, it sounds like staff has put a lot of thought and work into this, and so we have the motion on the floor. I'm going to call the question unless there's anyone else that wants to.
So another quick question. Do we have a landscape architect employed by the village right now under our director of operations or operations manager?
No, we used a landscape architect to do our Pocket Park planting plan.
Wow.
For the NDIT application last year, right? So that was a landscape architect that did that work.
Okay, so that's finished.
Yeah. It's on its way. Yeah. It's not, I mean, it's like the program.
They're not ongoing. Okay.
Yeah.
Look at me and my flexible thinking.
Hearing no comments or questions, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Well, good luck. I hope this is a successful application, and we'll all be happy if it works. Sure. Thanks, Carolyn.
Yeah, thank you.
And do we have you back here again?
Yes.
I do.
Okay.
Two more
Sorry, Your
times.
Worship. May I interject? Sorry, Your Worship, may I interject? Was Councillor, you didn't call for anyone opposed? Was Councillor Toss opposed?
No, I raised my hand for.
Oh, you did? Okay, I just didn't see the opposed part, so
Yeah.
that's why I was wondering. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Flexible thinking, CEO Storoshenko.
Thank you.
Okay, 3.2. The official community plan update progress report.
And as you know, this is the third progress report, and I'm focusing on phases 3 and 4. And just for those that are attending, as well as council and staff, thank you for everyone's participation in the community conversations. I think they were very well attended and some great comments. I also would say that Maggie Cross is joining us tonight, and she did do the summary of the themes from the conversation. So if you have questions, it might be good to co-direct those questions. So this is just going through, this first slide is where we are. So we've done the pre-meetings, we've done the launch, technical investigations in the workbook. So there's 2 outstanding right now. One is the environment and one is the geotech that's just being finished, which will really inform environmental and hazardous conditions in the community going forward. We now are starting to prepare the policy directions from the community conversations. And as you know, University of Fraser Valley finished their report and will be submitted in the next day or so. And then we also hope to do youth and young adult outreach, as I previously mentioned. And then Maggie and I have started drafting the updated vision, objectives, and policies, and they will continue through July. I will say that there has been adjustment. We pushed it back, and the primary reason, I can get into this later, was to ensure that the community conversations were fulsome and also to allow the youth and young adult outreach. So I think any good planning process, although the election is a big thing, if the OCP is not a good plan and it can't survive an election, then it probably shouldn't survive. So I say that now, but
Okay.
and next slide. So as you know, the community conversations were a series of meetings for residents, local interests, surrounding communities, and property owners. Um, and then and we did a detailed presentation that was intended to really spur comments. Ideas and input shared in each conversation will direct the key policy directions. And just so you know, participant ranged from about 10 to 30 per session, with total hits on YouTube is approximately 774. I did ask Melissa because even I thought that was pretty high. We can't actually pull out unique viewers, and I promise you that I didn't go on 600 or 700 times just to put the numbers up. So I actually never did rewatch them. So next slide. So here's what the conversations considered: economic development, housing, parks and trails, food security and agriculture, infrastructure, community facilities, emergency preparedness, Lytton identity, and Lytton identity. So, and as I mentioned, those are summarized. I'm not going to go through those details. We usually do not at these meetings. So you did. I'm not going to spend too much time because you know the University of Fraser Valley did their presentation and what they focused on. And this was actually part of the original work program. And we did originally contact University of Vancouver Island University, and they have a master's program there in planning. But they were, I guess they're transferring to University of Victoria, their program, because of budget cuts. So University of Fraser Valley, through Professor Sherry Eanes, were terrific. They really, they didn't really get engaged until the new year. So those again will complement the findings and where we go with the young adult engagement and the student. So I think I certainly a really good example, and I may have shared that with council privately before, is that of those students, half of them didn't have driver's license, and in my generation, certainly we that was something that we got the first time. So there was things that we learned from the youth that's really much more important than that maybe an older demographic might not have keyed into. So next slide. And here's what I mentioned. So the mayor, Councillor McCann, and Raven Dunstan and I went into the schools. Oh, sorry, Raven. Sorry, Raven didn't come, but she's helped us with some of the comments on it, just to help us. And we are working on a school-approved questionnaire and finding creative ways to engage youth in the OCB process. There was a lot of support for it's something interactive, and Maggie and I are working through that right now. We will be submitting questions to the principals for their prior approval. And then young adults will engage online, advertise through the village communication channels and social media. And again, this is for area young adults. Clearly, if we had just proceeded with the UFV, that's looking at who might come, but I think the most important demographic are those that are here already. So what's left before the statutory approval process? And so those of you that might not be familiar with that, A statutory approval process is the public hearing as well as several readings to make sure that there's due process. So we still have to do the youth and young adult research, or outreach. We have to do the technical, environmental, and geotechnical investigations. We have to write the document, and a big component of that will be maps and illustrations. We will draft and document engagement and input. So the draft document. So there was a comment from the community, and it's a very fair comment, and is that we aren't just going to throw the document at the community and not really break it down in digestible pieces. So that's what we will be doing. There probably will be a series and also sections. So we'll look at the vision and maybe some key directions early on, and then we'll go into sort of the stronger policy directions and actions, as well as the maps and what the repercussions are, what the policies or actions mean. So that will be worked on the summer, and then launching it once people are back in September. The other is complete referrals to surrounding communities, as well as the TNRD, senior government agencies, for example, MOTI or MOTT, Ministry of Environment, all those nonprofits who are very active in this community, and any other interests that have requested information about the OCP. So those are, if you have any questions, and there is a motion just to receive it.
Great, thank you. Let's put the motion on the table.
So we
Councillor Toss,
I'll second.
Councillor McCann. Okay, questions?
hopefully someone else other than me has questions.
I have a comment.
Okay, questions or comments? Councillor McCann.
Thank you. Thank you for all that work, Carolyn, and I appreciated the opportunity to sit down with the principals and have that conversation with them and to be able to further that, because I agree with you that the youth in this community are very, very important in this process, and we need to do everything we can to engage them in a meaningful way and get their feedback and their hopes and dreams for their community. So I look forward to that stage in the next month or so. Thanks.
Any other? Councillor Toss?
Thank you. I had concerns at the very and thank you for doing this work, and I realize it's valuable. I am concerned about the statement that, as mentioned in the November and February progress reports, goals related to the eclectic engagement have not been fulfilled. What have been the barriers and how do we overcome them? Or is there any sort of insight in that? Because I see a little bit further down, there's like partnerships with Enclupmic on provincially managed lands. And I'm just wondering about those two items and how do we do a better job?
I would love any and all ideas,
Okay.
to be honest. I will tell you that there is a formal referral process that I talked to, and I'd also say that although the governments haven't been engaged, there's a lot of community members that have engaged. Yeah.
Fair. Thank you. And then what does it look like when you say geotechnical and environmental consultants? What specifically are they trying to establish in terms of an OCP? Like, I understand riparian zones, we've looked at those. What are we looking at?
Exactly that. So in an OCP, you're sort of bound to discuss any lands that might be hazardous. So steep slopes, flooding risk, etc. And environmental, we're really just focusing on the riparian. We're doing a desktop study to see if there's anything else, but we're not doing the detailed because quite frankly, most of the development will be in the village, which is is a term called brownfield, which is not pristine environmental land.
Oh, right. Okay. I'm going to keep going. What?
One more.
Actually, am I?
Well,
restricted with
is
the
there
number
anyone else that would like to have a question or make a comment?
Is there a restriction on the number of questions? I understand I can't bring up the same business over and over
Right.
again, but this is new. So I'm wondering and this is an easy question. It's not, it's just I don't understand what a SWOT analysis is, SWOT. What does that
Strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats.
Thank you. That was not a hard one.
That was an easy one.
Yeah, and then I just have a suggestion. I know it's come up when I was in the OCP conversations about the ECDEV opportunities. I feel like geocaching and fishing and sturgeon fishing were not included. And then I didn't really understand what you meant with inclumic on provincially managed lands partnerships. What is that? Because we don't have provincially managed lands in the village, so, or not that I know of.
No, but when you look at recreational around
Okay,
it,
so regional interests then we're looking at.
and just so you know, I don't use the word crown lands because I don't think that's respectful. I use the word provincially managed because that's what's happened when it's outside reserve, and if there are tenures or previous licenses, they're really just managing them for those traditional territories.
Okay, so that's great. And then just as around economic development as well, I might put out there that one of our threats for economic development is economic stability. That's debatable, I know, but I do believe it's something that we should have on our radar.
Could you expand on that? I don't understand.
Just with predictable and constant taxes, like that's an attractive thing for a potential investor. And so just a threat would be the perception, if not the reality, but the perception that we're
Volatile or
volatile. Yeah. And yeah. So, and then I think also another threat is the lack of memorandums of understanding with our surrounding nations at this point in terms of ECDEV, but that might not be an OCP topic. Okay, I apologize. That's all my comments. Thank you.
Okay. I would just like to make comment that there's been a lot of work that's gone into this. We've extended the invitation to all the surrounding community members that we can think of, and some have taken advantage of that opportunity and some have decided not to. Is there still opportunity for people to give input? And how would they do that? What would be the best way?
I think, and it's probably on my list is to update the OCP webpage, but certainly the contact, and I believe on it already says if you have any questions. I've also followed up for a few people that I didn't think who had expressed interest and maybe were away or couldn't attend. So always looking for it. And again, sometimes I know for me, I'm not really good in abstracts in my own community, but once you start writing it, then I can really say, whoa, no, that's not what I want. So I believe that once the draft document comes out, it will be, we'll get more response, and both hopefully through governance, because it's written, and then secondly, also from the community that are interested, as well as, referral agencies.
So we have another 6 months to tune this up and get it to perfection, correct? Yes.
Yeah, it's not final until you adopt.
Okay, and Mayor O'Connor, I see your hand is up.
Thank you. I finally found the buttons. Yeah, I just have a comment. I just wanted to thank Carolyn and her team for this work. I appreciate these updates that we've been getting, just where you're at with it. But just your expertise and the work you've put into it is absolutely appreciated. And I really look forward to having this done and seeing the results of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Toss?
Yeah, just under housing, I just flipped the page and realized I had a comment there as well. I just feel like one of the challenges with housing as well, and I know you can speak to this, Carolyn, if maybe I'm off, but I feel one of our challenges within the village is the costs of archaeology. So that seems to be a barrier for people investing. So I don't know if that would make its way into one of our challenges columns, but for me, I see that as a significant challenge for attracting investors in.
When you build a house, which I'm doing right now for the village, 2 of them, there's a lot of costs to worry about. And in some communities, it's serious steep slopes, it's water courses, and I mean, that arc site's been there for a really long time, and unfortunately,
It's not the arc site. I'm completely supportive of archaeology. What I'm concerned about is people not investing because of the unknown cost, which has been reported to me. But I won't belabor the point. I understand that it's maybe not part of the OCP.
Well, I seem to recall, correct me if I'm wrong, just not too long ago, we had a list of all the things builders would have to be knowledgeable about. And as you've said, it varies from location to location. If you're in a floodplain or a steep slope, there's additional costs. So just being aware of what the costs were, I think we improved that form so that people were aware of what they might incur.
Oh, the site alteration review.
Site alteration review.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That was the
Thank
point
you.
of that, was
Paying
to,
attention.
to try to make people aware of
Yeah.
what they needed to consider.
Anyway, we have the motion on the table. I'll thank you once again for your good work, Carolyn. And
you.
calling the question, all in favor? Seeing no one opposed, motion carried. And you're back
I know.
for 7.3. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So this is the economic development strategy, and we're bringing forward a request for proposals before the OCP has been adopted, and I'm just going to say that that's not normally the strategy, or an approach, but I do think in this case, there's valid reasons. So next slide. So what I'm going to do is why the village should pursue a community-driven and action-oriented economic development strategy before the adoption of the OCP, and then provide an overview of the request of a proposal document for council's consideration. So that's what this report is about. So here I go. So there's a bit of background to this, and I did get some comments, obviously, from Councillor Thoss as well as the community about the June 25th, 2025 Economic Development Status Report. And it was done at a council workshop because it was really just saying, rather than doing an economic strategy at that time, we need to do the OCP. And so this document is a huge resource to me, and hopefully for all of you, is it provides a background on historic local economies, community demographics, current OCP directions, and economic development studies, both prior to June 2021 as well as post-fire. So status of the rebuild and recovery indicators, the strategic plan, economic recovery action plans, and next steps, for example, the OCP. So next slide, please. So pre-fire, and I did meet with the chamber with Bernie, and he was really helpful, and he gave me the Lytton Tourism Diversification Project, the Tourism Master Plan, and those were done before, and those were really economic development. I wasn't able to find anything specific to non-tourism economic development, just so you know, pre-fire. Post-fire, you're all familiar with the Destination Development Plan, which is tourism driven. There was the infrastructure study, which had key themes or survey where they went out and asked people what they're looking for economic development and a whole bunch of other things. And I believe that drove a lot of the direction for the community facilities such as the hub, the upgrading, the infrastructure, etc. And then there was also the short-term recovery plan, which was really about, I think it was done just 4 months after the fire, so very interim. So next slide. I think the report that most people reference is the O'Leary report. And it was dated 2023, but most of it was done in 2022. And the purpose was to provide guidance to the village and act as a resource for other agencies operating in the region to support business owners in the recovery process and set the stage for an example of collaboration reconciliation beyond the boundaries of the map, with objectives to facilitate ground-up solutions for economic recovery and to demonstrate the community that we listened to them and translated their needs into actionable path forward. So in talking to many people that did meet with this group, I know that a lot of really good information came through it. And so the key takeaway was, as much as the focus is on economic recovery and business, rebuilding homes was important as rebuilding businesses, which is, I thought, was actually not something that I think we all agree with that. So next slide, please. So then what it did is it went through a whole bunch of short-term and midterm actions. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but these were what they were. I've taken them from the plan. Um, there's obviously things that we've worked on or tried and went forward with. Some things are outside our jurisdiction, or we're unable to work together. For example, that maybe there is a need for MOUs, and that's why it hasn't happened. So that's short term. The next slide, please, is the midterm. A lot of things have happened through some of the grant programs, and there's a lot of detail in that as well. Provide support for home-based business, move ahead with the overall recovery plan. Um, Obviously, all these things. Some, again, it's really hard, like a small volunteering reporting program to track additional costs. I don't even know where to start with that. So, as someone that has roots really in municipal processes and I guess what we are legislated able to do, some of these have gone beyond what the village's responsibility are. But again, that report in June went through every recommendation and reported back to council on it. So next slide, please. So then in February 2026, we prepared an economic development status report. And this is interesting because it says once the village has established a vision, policy direction, actions, and the updated OCP, the Director of Development seek funding to complete an economic development strategy. This has been outlined in detail in both the community meetings and council reports. The OCP work plan and proposed economic development strategy has ambitious timelines for completion in 2026, yet the village continues to entertain proposals for new economic opportunities that will benefit the community. So that's saying that even though we're going ahead with an economic development strategy, or when we do, we're not going to like put a moratorium on great ideas. Definitely the CAO and the mayor and we're all fielding calls with interested business and economic development opportunities, and I'm sure the chamber is as well. Now, I will say that this, as I mentioned in the last presentation, the OCP has fallen back off schedule. And it was always our intent to, in April or May, believing that we would have the vision, policy directions, and actions done. As I mentioned, too, is that this is funded, the economic development strategy is funded through the provincial program that the CAO talked about last week, as well as I'm the managing person of this process, and my contract does end at the end, or my employee contract ends at the end of this year. So the thought was not to lose the resource or the funding and to pursue concurrent. So right now, do we really need an economic development strategy? And that's the question. Haven't we done enough? Is the community really asking for it? And just, this, as I've often said to you, this is not Carolyn saying you need an economic development strategy. This is what we heard from the project launch, the OCP workbooks, and the community conversations. And I'm not going to go through in huge detail all of those. It's in your report, highlighting all the comments. But definitely, this was the direction. I will say, though, that in comments before us, I think tourism, you guys pretty much know where you're going. The destination development plan is a solid document, and we're implementing it, and we have a vision. What the tough stuff is, like you said, green energy or economic drivers, or maybe we don't have one economic driver, but we have a whole bunch of small ones, or maybe we need to embrace something really unique. So next slide. So here's what we did for the request for proposal, key considerations. So we definitely don't want this off the shelf. This is something that we really want to be unique to Lytton and unique to Lytton's situation. So community driven again and inclusive and specific to Lytton. Clear working plan rather it's a clear working plan. Sorry, there's a type of made by and for the Lytton area. It recognizes and furthers the engagement and consistency of the OCP updates. So we don't want a consultant that comes in and thinks he's just going to recreate the wheel. We want them to follow the work that's been done. And to Councillor Toss's point before, improved understanding and relationship buildings with Indigenous economic development, business, and entrepreneurial interests in the region. So Again, there's been some really terrific initiatives from the surrounding communities that we showcased a bit in the presentation on economic development, and we need to understand those. Build local capacity and resilience, supporting entrepreneurship, long-term community economic governance structures. Be actionable and realistic for small with limited resources community. So don't have like a full-time economic development like we're in Kamloops or something. This has to be realistic. Engage and work directly with business interests, Indigenous governments and economic development agencies, property owners and senior government, and non-for-profits. Matching potential businesses with vacant and underdeveloped lands. That's a real challenge. People sit on lands, but yet there's other people that would love to build housing or something, their business. So how do we match them? And we want to understand that through whoever does the economic development strategy. Pursuing opportunities of potential insights on funds, funders, and philanthropy. Certainly in other communities I've worked at, and I will say in the States, it's more prolific, is philanthropy is big and to help a community achieve what they want to do. So let's just tap into that. I know we have already had quite a few community donors on some of the projects that's already gone ahead. And be clear, a working plan rather than a high-level strategy. So again, roll up the sleeves, let's get it done. So the next slide. So here's some ideas. What can we pilot here that cannot be piloted elsewhere? What economic systems make sense in a high identity, high visibility place, which is Lytton? How do we turn rebuilding into economic opportunity rather than restoration? How do we get property owners to develop their property that supports the local economy? How do we support local entrepreneurs? How do we increase tax base? And how do we invest in and attract new residents? So next slide. So the timeline, it's tight, and I will say it's deliberate. We want people that this is what they do. We don't want every right now. This economy, you would, if you had it open for a month, you would get every consulting agency, and in turn, our lack of resources within the community would make it really challenges. I think I experienced that with the essential housing proposal call. So the ones that do this, it won't be that hard for them to prepare an RFP. And then we'll recommend the consultant to council June 23rd with project completion November 30th, 2026, subject to the OCP, of course. The project will be funded by the Municipal Affairs 6.26 million Wildfire Recovery Grant. Next slide. So that is the recommendation.
Great. Would someone like to put that
Also move.
table? Councillor Toss, also Councillor Michelle. Discussion or comment? Councillor Toss?
I am very much against another consultant, another strategy. I have a question to either Carolyn or our CAO about the, and I don't see the actual amount in there, but I'm assuming it's the 80,000 that we approved in the proposed projects last meeting.
That was just the amount that's budgeted. Yeah.
So that would be like the maximum uptake kind of thing. So I'm not sure if that money, it's coming from the 6.26 provincial money. What are what else could we use that for? Like, could we actually just directly go and fix the raft takeout for that? Or do we have to?
We've asked about the raft takeout specifically before,
Okay.
and because it's kind of a capital item, that grant is not available for any capital purchases.
Okay.
So that's just kind of like one of the overarching rules around that one.
Okay.
It's specifically excluded in the contribution agreement.
So what can it be used for? The
It can be used
6.26?
for, I think I put the, I have to look it up. I put the definition in the package last week when I proposed the projects to come from it.
The $2.3 million motion from last meeting?
No, it was about 300,000.
Oh, part of that though, yeah. Okay.
Those projects.
So I can go back and look at that. Okay, that's fine. And then I hear, Carolyn, you said lack of resources in the community. Have we approached the Nklapmuk Nation to collaborate with us? And I ask this because we share a main street and our economic development strategy is so completely intertwined with the larger community, LFN, particularly with our shared services, doubling potentially of amenities or initiatives or part, there's things that we don't want to duplicate, and certainly we have shared interests. So what does that look like?
It looks like what the terms that we identified in this report, that a key component is to work with all those other communities if they will work with us on this. And I think some of the economic development initiatives the other communities have pursued are really interesting. And if we could work together, I think that would be amazing. So again, continue the desires and the directions of the OCP through economic development. So it's just making it more specific.
So there's no direct, we haven't involved any outside community thus far.
Well, I guess it would be
if it passes.
Yeah, so this funding is to the village.
Okay.
If I may interject, so some of these governance structures outside of the municipal properties or what our municipality do own property within the municipality. So anyone that's property owner within the municipality will definitely be part of this project. It would probably expand further. So for instance, I'm just putting this out, it may not work, it may not. So Stein Valley Park or whatever, say there was a desire for a local entrepreneur to become a travel guide or whatever. They would perhaps identify those individuals, maybe outside of the agency itself. I don't know. I see that one of the main things we're trying to do is get growth and businesses in this community. And I think someone with a short timeline like that might become able to come up with some really innovative approaches that appeal to not only the municipality, but the wider community. I think it's money well spent, and I think it's the time to do it now because we're all quite wary of vacant properties sitting. We had some before the fire, and we have more now. But I'm sorry if I cut you off, if you'd like to make further comments. But
no, it's fine. I think the intent is, as I did in my presentation, is to make it very inclusive. As you know, Jason Robertson worked with us on the community conversations, and he's someone that is a very entrepreneurial individual, and I've learned a lot from him and his ideas and what they've done at LFN, as well as him personally with his wild foods. So there you don't want to leave that. There's so many interesting, creative people that maybe just need us to do some research to help them, succeed, or help them not just doing research, but understand resources and really dig down with groups like Community Futures or whatever, and to open up those opportunities. So, yeah.
so
Mayor O'Connor.
Mayor O'Connor, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in full support of this. I appreciate some of the bullets in that will go out, regarding working in, our small community, keeping things manageable. I think that's so important, and I think many of the things that you mentioned just now, Carolyn and Councillor Toss, are things that will be ongoing. I don't think that's necessarily tied to putting out an RFP for this project. So I'm in full support of it, and as acting mayor Lightfoot said, we need all the help we can get. So I think it's money well spent. Thank you, or well worth spending. Thank you.
Councillor Toss.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Lightfoot. I'm just wondering about that question. I don't know if I heard the answer about the chamber being involved at all with their expertise on economic development. Have they been brought into any of these initiatives?
Well, first of all, there is no initiative yet, but they certainly have participated in the community conversations and all the outreach we did with the OCP. As I said early on, I meet with Bernie, and I know CAO Membercat does quite often, which is the president of the chamber. And we, if you recall, we did do the February economic development report, really just to share some of the initiatives we're doing and they're doing. They also, it, all the whole grocery store, if you go back to some of the early, like the recovery plan, that was really, really important, and they've worked towards getting that moving forward, so that's valuable. I did obviously send this report to the chamber, and I've also talked to chamber organizations, the BC chambers organizations, just for me to better understand their abilities and what they can contribute. And I think it's all over the proposal call that chamber, as well as groups like Two Rivers and New Pathways to Gold, they're all really vital, not to mention the surrounding communities' economic development initiatives. So I think, yes, we definitely asked, and I did send Bernie an email on
So to
Monday.
be clear, the chamber supports this?
I don't know if they're a referral agency that would.
Okay, so, but you said you spoke to the chamber, so, okay, thank you.
Councillor McCann.
Thank you. I'll just summarize what I think I heard, and that is that what we're being asked to do is to send out this proposal for a strategy that's going to kind of continue from this work that's already been done in economic development, and to kind of move it that one step forward, but at the same time being parallel with the OCP, so that we're not conflicting in our objectives here, that they kind of run parallel.
Correct. And if you think about a RFP process, even though it's we won't get the submission still till June, and then it just takes a while to get even such a strategy rolling.
Yeah.
So I believe that we'll be in good shape on the OCP to at least give them some initial, and to work on a work program with them that will really run concurrent and actually hopefully follow through on an action of the OCP. So
Great. Thanks, Carolyn.
Well, I think we have discussed this in depth. If there's no other comments, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Toss is in opposition, but the motion is carried.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you, Carolyn.
thank you, everybody.
Bylaws for readings. Zoning amendment bylaw, 500 Fraser Street. And this is coming up for third reading. Is there any staff that wants to make comment? No? Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Make the motion, Councillor Toss.
Second. Oh, I beat you.
Oh. Councillor Toss and Mayor O'Connor. Okay, any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
All, that's unanimous, and it's carried. Adoption, bylaws for adoption, official community plan amendment, 7th Street bylaw. This is coming up for final adoption. And
I'll move.
Mayor O'Connor and Councillor McCann. Sure. Okay. Any discussion? If not, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. That's carried. Correspondence. We're moving on to item 10, correspondence, incoming correspondence for information. Is there any comment or action anyone wants to take on this? If not, I would entertain a motion to receive for information. Councillor Michelle, seconded by Councillor McCann. Okay, moving on to verbal reports. So, Mayor,
We're all
calling the question. All in favor? Thank you. I'm charging along to verbal reports, item number 11. And first up is Mayor O'Connor, who we must all extend our heartfelt happy birthday.
Oh.
So I know you've been keeping busy, and if you'd like to give us an update, we're ready to listen in.
Yes, I'm not out of town because I'm celebrating my birthday. I'm actually heading to
No,
TNR
you're
meeting early in the morning. So, okay. So our last council meeting was on May the 12th. On the 14th, I attended TNRD meeting at that time. There was a regular board meeting there. Of course, that following that was the long weekend, the May Day weekend, which was a lot of fun. Lots of things happening at the Canyon Cruise day on the Sunday. I sat at a table for most of the time with CAO or CO Storoshenko, sorry, Corporate Officer Storoshenko, where we had the plans for some of the buildings, the hub and the village office, and we had a lot of people stop by, and we were able to talk about it, which was wonderful. And on the suggestion of the organizers, we actually accepted donations to the village, and actually, that was quite a conversation piece with the little donation jar there, and it was more for that to draw attention. But we did raise $290, which will go into the donations budget to be used at a future date for things that aren't covered by recovery and all of the other budgets that we have. So people were very willing to do that, and we're very happy to see the plans and such that things that are going on in the village. Of course, the May Day parade, we participated in that in the truck, in the new electric truck after decorating it. So nice not to have as windy a day as the year before. On Friday the 22nd, I was invited to an organization called Climate Caucus, and they're all across Canada, but the BC chapter invited me to do a presentation at their for an hour on that day. I don't know how many people came online, but I sort of told the Lytton story and then fielded any questions. A lot of the questions were around what happened, but also what's happening moving forward, particularly around climate, fire resiliency, that sort of thing. And I remember one of the questions was around policy. Is the community developing policy around climate adaptation, climate resilience, and that sort of thing? So I was able to share with them about how we put in the building bylaw to make things affordable for people rather than the one that had been proposed before. And at the end of the presentation, I actually suggested they check out our website, because that was one of the other things. Were we mandating the fire protection, fire smarting, and all of that sort of thing with the rebuilding? And I shared with them that no, we weren't mandating it, but we were strongly recommending, suggesting, and that we had materials on our website. And actually today I received an email from a counselor. I can't remember where she's from, but really appreciated the one-page sheet that's on our website around, the fire smarting and good practices around that. She said because typically it's pages and pages and pages. So she thought that. So kudos to our communications person for putting that up on our website. Let's see what else. Monday, I participated in a health planning table with not just for the rebuild of the medical center, because it's around, the conversation is around services, health services, and a number of things. But, I don't have a lot to report, but I feel like we're on the right track, and that things are moving forward. Governments, ministries, everything takes so long, but I'm confident we will see a medical center built in our community back on the IHA property. This morning, I visited the mayor of Clinton and his CAO, and toured some of their facilities and had some learnings around another small community without industry, how they're managing. So that was really interesting. And then here I am today, ready for TNRD tomorrow morning. So that is my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. And Councillor Toss.
Thank you. I don't have a lot to report other than how much I enjoyed the Canyon Cruise, and sincere thanks to the organizers of that. I think it just such an incredible event to have people from all over the Lower Mainland come up here. And like Mayor O'Connor, I heard a lot of good things about our village, and there was a lot of excitement from the people there. So I'd like to see that continue. And I really, yeah, like I say, really thank the organizers of that. And that is my report.
Okay. Councillor McCann?
Thank you. Whew. Took a minute, or 2 minutes. So I was involved in a number of activities, not as much as the previous meeting, but on May 13th, I met with the school principals and Carolyn Lamont regarding the OCP, and the mayor joined us as well. On the 15th, I joined staff and other council members in thanking Angela Hollis for her years of service to the village. On the 16th and 18th, to the 18th, so the May weekend, I attended various events during the long weekend, ending with joining the village team in the parade. On the 20th of May, I went to the Cumsheen Fire Smart Collaborative and worked with them to assess the recent community event. On the 21st, I attended an Economic Service Providers Planning Session. And on the 25th was the only coffee that we had, so I went to that. That was yesterday. And I'd just like to say that I enjoyed taking part in both the organizing and the execution of the events scheduled over the long weekend. I would like to acknowledge the May Weekend Planning Committee of Donnie Sam, Jeannie Spinks, Arlene Edwards, and myself, but not as much as them, for all their hard work in making things happen, and to acknowledge our friends from Fraserlands Church that added their support to the events as well. So thank you.
Okay. Councillor Michelle?
Report.
And I don't have a lot to report. I was able to make it to the May Day parade, and it was windy, but not as windy as the year before.
Yeah.
And made it out to wish Angela a happy retirement. I think she's looking forward to quieter days and slower pace. And of course, the May Day Committee has to be commended for another excellent weekend of fun and activities for our whole community. So with that, that's the end of our verbal reports. And it brings us to other business, a notice of motion. And Councillor Toss, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, so actually this wasn't a notice motion, just an agenda item for discussion. I am going to request that we table this. I think that's the right phrase, to the June 9th meeting to give me more of an opportunity to understand exactly how I can approach this as per my
Okay.
my email giving you the heads up. Thanks.
Okay. Table till June the 9th, and I believe there's no discussion and no secondary required for that. So that will.
I wasn't sure. Thank you.
Agenda for June 9th.
Thank you, everyone.
Closed meeting. There was one item released from the May 12th. The resolution that the council approved the deputy CAO job description as amended, and I believe it's been posted at this point.
Yeah.
And closed session. Now we need to move into closed session pursuant to 91(1) discussions with municipal officers and employees, 92(b) the consideration of information received in confidence, and so I'd like a motion to move into in camera. Councillor Michelle, did you? Okay. You're so quiet. I didn't hear you. Okay.
I'll second.
And Councillor McCann. So Lisa, if you'd like to close out this meeting, I'd like to thank everyone for attending and have a good weekend. Good week ahead. It's supposed to get hot again tomorrow.
Is it good?
Yeah. So
Lisa, yeah, Lisa's muted maybe.
Am I still muted? Yes. Okay. I do want to just mention that we actually, according to our council procedure bylaw, we actually do need a motion to be able to table that item of Councillor Toss's. So I do need someone else to second it, and that the majority of council actually is okay with it.
Okay, consider me corrected. Do I have a seconder?
Sure.
Okay, Councillor
Perfect.
Buchanan, any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? I can vote on that. I see
Wonderful.
it's unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, and so that, thank you, Your Worship. So that concludes the public portion of the regular council meeting for May 26th. We ask that members of the public and staff exit the meeting as council proceeds to closed. Thank you for joining us, and council, I invite you to take a short recess while I prepare the meeting for closed.
Thank you.
Thank you.